The evening sky was heavy with gray clouds, and the man walked slowly along the dirt path, calling the name of his dog again and again. His voice was tired, rough from hours of shouting into the cold air. The leash in his hand dragged across the ground empty, swinging from side to side. The sound of it made his heart ache. The dog had never run away before. It was his loyal companion, his only real friend since his wife had passed away years ago. The house had been too quiet without her, but the dog had filled that silence with barks, laughter, and love. Now the silence was back, pressing on his chest like a weight. He stopped at the edge of the forest, staring at the dark line of trees. Shadows stretched out like claws, and the wind whistled through the leaves, whispering secrets that seemed meant only for him. People in town had always spoken about strange lights in this forest. They warned children not to wander too deep, told stories about voices that were not human and tracks that vanished in the mud as if nothing had ever walked there. He had never believed those tales before. Now with his dog missing, he felt those stories pressing on him like a cold hand. "Max," he called again, his voice echoing. For a moment, he thought he heard nothing but the rustle of leaves. Then faintly a bark answered him. Relief shot through his chest like fire. His dog was out there, alive. He ran forward, stumbling on roots and rocks, chasing the sound. But then another sound joined the bark, laughter. High, soft, strange. It wasn't human laughter. It was lighter, sharper, like crystal chimes breaking in the night air. The man froze. His skin crawled. His breath caught in his throat. Who was out there with his dog? The barking came again, closer this time. He turned his head, listening carefully, trying to block out the beating of his own heart. His dog sounded happy, not afraid. That alone made him hesitate. If there was danger, the dog would be growling, barking with warning. But the tone was playful, excited, like when the dog met children at the park. The thought chilled him further. What kind of children were in these woods after dark? He forced himself forward, step by step. His boots sank into soft mud, and his flashlight cut weak beams through the mist curling between the trees. Suddenly he spotted something on the ground, paw prints. His dog's. The tracks were clear, but beside them was something else. Smaller footprints, not shaped like any human foot he had ever seen. 3 toes pressed deep into the earth, each ending in sharp, strange tips. He knelt down, touching the print with his fingers. It was real, not a trick of light or shadow. His stomach tightened. As he rose, the air around him seemed to hum faintly. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the sound of insects. It was something unnatural, a low vibration that passed through his bones. His dog barked again, this time with a short howl of joy, followed by the sound of something crashing through the underbrush. He lifted his light and saw glowing dust scattered across broken branches, shimmering faintly like tiny stars had fallen onto the forest floor. The man's breath quickened. His dog had gone into a world he didn't understand. He whispered the name softly now, not wanting to draw attention, not wanting to disturb whatever else was moving in the trees. Max. The forest grew quiet. Too quiet, as if every bird and insect had gone silent at once. Then out of the stillness came the sound of footsteps. Not heavy, not threatening, light, quick, almost playful. He spun, sweeping his flashlight in a wide arc. The beam caught nothing but fog and leaves. Then it stopped. 2 glowing eyes were staring at him from the shadows. They blinked once, then disappeared, moving so fast he wasn't sure if they had been real. He stumbled back, gripping the leash tight. His heart pounded. He wanted to run, but the sound of his dog's bark pulled him forward again. Every instinct told him to turn around and go home, to leave the forest, to forget what he had heard. But he couldn't. His dog was out there, with something or someone that didn't belong to this world. He swallowed hard and stepped deeper into the darkness, unaware that he was crossing a line he could never return from. The forest closed around him like a cage. The deeper he went, the heavier the air felt, thick with damp moss and the faint scent of something burning. Though no fire was near, he gripped the leash tighter, his knuckles white, whispering his dog's name again. Each time the echo bounced back at him, empty and lonely. But then, from somewhere up ahead, he heard it again, the playful bark. His heart leapt, pushing him forward. The beam of his flashlight swept across the ground, catching familiar paw prints. Relief spread through him for a brief second, but it faded as quickly as it came. Next to the paw marks were more of those strange footprints. Small, light, but sharp. 3 clear toes pressed into the mud, spaced wider apart than any child's foot. He bent down, tracing them with shaking fingers. The prints were fresh. Too fresh. Whatever made them had walked here only moments ago. He rose, and that's when he noticed something else. Around the prints, tiny flecks of glowing dust clung to the dirt. They shimmered faintly under his light, like pieces of broken stars scattered on the ground. He rubbed some between his fingers. It didn't feel like sand or dirt. It felt alive, warm, like it pulsed faintly with its own energy. He quickly brushed it off, his heart thudding. The dog barked again, but this time the sound was followed by another noise. Laughter. The same crystal-like laughter he had heard earlier, high and sharp, but now closer. It wasn't the laugh of a child, he knew. It carried a strange rhythm, almost like a song, and it made the hair rise on the back of his neck. His breath came faster. He wanted to shout, to demand whoever was out there show themselves, but his throat felt locked tight. The man followed the trail carefully, his boots sinking into the damp soil. Each step echoed louder than he wanted. He turned his light to the left, then to the right. The forest seemed to be holding its breath. Every bird, every insect, every creature had gone silent. Only his footsteps and the occasional bark of his dog broke the stillness. Suddenly, the leash in his hand jerked slightly. He froze, but then realized he was still clutching only the empty strap. His mind played tricks on him, making it feel heavier, as if his dog was pulling him deeper into the woods. He shook his head and pressed on. The prints led him to a clearing where the mist was thickest. The moonlight cut through the trees, pale and cold. The ground was littered with more glowing dust, and the paw prints circled in wild loops as if the dog had been running in joy. The strange three-toed tracks danced beside them, crisscrossing in playful patterns. He stared at them, heart hammering. His dog wasn't just lost, it was playing with something. From the corner of his eye, movement flickered. He spun, raising the light. For a split second, he saw a shape dart between the trees. Small, quick, almost childlike. He held his breath. Then another shape moved behind it, laughing softly. Two of them. The sound of bare feet pattered across the ground, light and fast, circling him. He turned in a slow circle, trying to catch them with the flashlight. The beam cut through the mist, catching nothing but branches. Yet the laughter echoed from every side. He felt trapped in their game. His chest tightened with fear, but his dog barked again, happy and playful, as if this was all nothing more than fun. Then, clear as day, he saw them. Two pairs of glowing eyes low to the ground, watching him from the shadows. They blinked, then vanished. He spun toward the sound of crunching leaves behind him. Nothing. Another bark rang out, this time followed by a sound that froze him completely. Words. Not in English, not in any language he knew, but soft whispers, quick and musical. It was speech. They were speaking to each other. His heart pounded in his ears. The footprints proved they were real. The laughter proved they were alive. And the whispers proved they were not animals. These were children, or something like children, but not human. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to move forward again. The tracks led deeper into the woods toward a thick wall of trees. Just as he reached it, his light caught something strange. Carved into the bark were marks, symbols glowing faintly with the same dust that covered the ground. Spirals, circles, and lines that looked like constellations. He touched one and felt a faint vibration run through his hand, making his skin tingle. A sudden crash of movement made him jump back. Leaves scattered as something darted past him. He whirled, light swinging wildly, and for the briefest moment he saw them. Two small figures no taller than his waist, skin pale and faintly glowing, eyes large and bright like moons. They giggled as they ran, and beside them his dog bounded happily. Tongue out, tail wagging, the man's mouth went dry. His dog wasn't lost. It had been found by them. The man stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat. His flashlight shook slightly in his hand, the beam flickering across the misty clearing. For a long moment he thought his eyes were lying to him, but no, the sight was real. His dog was there, tail wagging furiously, leaping around two small figures that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The children, or at least they looked like children, were unlike anything he had ever seen. They were short, no higher than his waist, with thin limbs and pale skin that shimmered faintly as if dusted with silver. Their eyes were enormous, too large for their faces, and glowed with a soft light, shifting colors like deep water reflecting the moon. They had no hair, only smooth heads that caught the light strangely. Their movements were fast, quick as shadows, but graceful, almost like dancers. The man's legs felt like stone, He wanted to run, but his dog barked happily, circling the alien children, chasing a glowing ball they tossed between themselves. The ball wasn't solid. It seemed to be made of light, pulsing and spinning in midair as if it were alive. Each time the children touched it, it changed color. Blue, green, gold, shimmering like a living star. His heart thudded painfully in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to get his dog and run back home, to lock the doors and never return to this cursed forest. But another part of him, a quieter voice, whispered something else. The children didn't look dangerous. They didn't chase him. They didn't snarl or bare teeth. They played. They laughed. They treated his dog with kindness as if it were one of their own. Still, his fear would not release him. He raised the flashlight higher, the beam falling across one of the children's faces. The creature froze, wide eyes staring straight into him. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The child blinked slowly, then raised a small hand, not in threat, but in greeting. The gesture was simple, soft, almost human. The man's throat felt dry. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "Max," he whispered, as if the dog could save him from this dream. His dog barked joyfully and bounded toward him before circling back to the children, unwilling to leave the game. Then one of the alien children did something unexpected. It held out the glowing ball of light, stepping slowly toward the man. The orb floated just above its hands, spinning gently, casting ripples of color across the mist. The child's face held no anger, no fear, only curiosity. The man stepped back, his boots crunching on leaves. His pulse roared in his ears. Every nerve in his body told him this was wrong, impossible, dangerous. Yet another thought forced its way into his mind. What if this was not danger, but a gift? What if they wanted to share something? He didn't move, torn between terror and wonder. The child tilted its head, eyes wide, and pushed the orb closer. His dog barked once, as if encouraging him, tail wagging furiously. Suddenly, the forest trembled. A low rumble shook the ground, leaves falling from the trees as if a storm had struck. The orb flickered, dimming for a moment, and the children gasped, clutching each other. Their laughter vanished. Their eyes darted toward the dark trees beyond the clearing, fear flashing across their glowing faces. The man's chest tightened. If these children were afraid, then something far worse was out there. He didn't know who or what was coming, but he knew the sound of fear when he heard it. The children pressed closer together, whispering rapidly in their strange musical language, their glowing eyes wide with terror. His dog growled suddenly, standing between them and the trees, ears flat, teeth bared. The sound sent a shiver down the man's spine. Max was no longer playing. He sensed the danger too. The man felt torn apart inside. He had come into the forest only to find his dog. Yet now he stood facing something far bigger. His dog wasn't just lost, it had led him here to these children. And these children, they were not his enemy. If anything, they seemed lost themselves. The glowing orb flickered again, then dimmed completely as the child lowered its hands. The light faded into nothing, leaving only the pale glow of their skin and the cold silver of the moon. The rumble grew louder, like heavy steps crushing through the forest floor. The man's stomach dropped. Whoever those footsteps belonged to, they were not friendly. The children looked at him suddenly, their faces pleading without words. One of them stepped closer and grabbed his sleeve with a trembling hand. Its skin was cool, smooth, and faintly electric, sending a strange tingle through his arm. The gesture was clear, it was asking him for help. He stood frozen, torn between fear and instinct. His dog growled again, snapping at the dark. The footsteps came closer, shaking the earth with each heavy stride. The man's eyes darted between the shadows and the children clinging to him. For the first time in his life, he realized he was no longer the one searching. Now he had been found by something that needed him. The man stood in the clearing, his breath quick and shallow. His dog growled low, eyes fixed on the dark wall of trees. The alien children clung to his sleeve, their glowing faces full of fear. The ground still shook faintly as if something massive was moving closer step by step. The strange laughter and play had vanished. Now silence pressed heavy on them all. The man's mind spun. He had only wanted to find his dog, to bring it home. Instead, he stood at the center of something he could not explain. Children that were not human, a forest alive with glowing dust, and the sound of something hunting them. His heart hammered. Should he protect them, or was he a fool to even trust them? The taller of the two children released his sleeve and pulled the other one close. Their large eyes glowed brighter in the dark, darting back and forth. They whispered in their strange musical language, voices sharp and urgent. He couldn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. Fear was the same in every language. He stepped back, raising the flashlight. "What do you want from me?" he whispered, though he knew they couldn't understand him either. His dog barked once, snapping at the air, his body stiff with tension. The children flinched but didn't run. Instead, one of them pointed with its small hand, not at him, not at the ground, but at the forest behind them. The man frowned. "Back there?" His voice shook. The child nodded, quick and desperate. Then it touched his chest with a trembling hand and pointed again. The message was clear: "Help us. Protect us." His throat tightened. He didn't even know what they were. Yet in their wide, glowing eyes he saw something painfully familiar. They weren't monsters. They weren't hunters. They were just children, scared, lost and in danger. The rumble grew louder. Leaves trembled. Branches snapped in the distance, heavy steps drawing closer. The man glanced around, heart racing. He could run. He could leave them. Take his dog and escape before whatever was coming arrived. His dog looked at him, tail stiff, as if waiting for his choice. But when he looked back at the children, clutching each other, eyes wide with fear, he felt a surge of something he had not felt in a long time: responsibility. He crouched low, whispering, "Stay close. Don't make a sound." He had no idea if they understood, but the children nodded quickly, pressing close to his side. His dog moved in front of them, standing like a guard, growl deepening. The man turned off his flashlight. Darkness swallowed the clearing, but the faint glow from the children's skin lit the mist around them like pale lanterns. He wanted to tell them to hide their light, but it wasn't something they could control. They were born to shine, even in danger. The first shadow appeared at the tree line. Tall, broad, armored. The figure moved slowly, scanning the ground with a strange humming device. The man's blood turned cold. This was no ordinary hunter. Another shape followed, then another. 3 of them, maybe more, moving carefully, methodically. They carried long weapons that glowed faintly at the tips, cutting through the mist like blades of light. The alien children whimpered softly, their glow flickering as they clung tighter to him. His dog growled again, but the man placed a hand on its back, whispering, "Quiet." His hand shook as it pressed against the dog's fur. The hunters stopped at the glowing tracks in the dirt. One crouched, touching the shimmering dust, then raised its head sharply, scanning the trees. The man's chest clenched. They would find the trail. They would find him. His mind raced. He could run deeper into the forest with the children, but the hunters looked fast, trained. If he ran blindly, they would catch them, but if he stayed, they would be discovered anyway. He needed a choice, a test. Could he trust these children? And could they trust him? He looked at them, their glowing eyes fixed on him with desperate hope. He swallowed hard. Slowly, he motioned with his hand, pressing a finger to his lips. "Be silent." Then he pointed to a cluster of fallen logs nearby, dark and heavy with moss. The children looked at each other, then at him. For a tense moment, he thought they wouldn't move. Then, as silent as shadows, they slipped behind the logs, crouching low, their faint glow hidden mostly by the moss. His dog stayed with them, pressing close, its growl fading into a soft rumble. The man stood in front, his body trembling, but his heart set. He would protect them. Whatever these children were, they were innocent. And innocence deserved to be defended. The hunters stepped into the clearing. Their voices were deep and harsh, speaking in a language heavy with growls and sharp clicks. One raised its weapon, sweeping it across the clearing, a beam of light scanning the ground. It passed dangerously close to the fallen logs. The man held his breath, every muscle frozen. Seconds stretched into eternity. Finally, the hunters moved on, following the tracks deeper into the forest. The clearing grew silent again, only the faint glow of moss and mist around him. The man let out a shaky breath, sweat dripping down his temple. He turned to the children. Their wide eyes stared at him, full of wonder and trust. For the first time, they smiled at him, not playful, not mischievous, but grateful. The smaller one reached out, touching his hand lightly. He felt the same cool, electric tingle run through his skin. A bond had been formed, fragile but real. The man realized then that he had passed a test, though he had not known it. The children had trusted him with their safety, and he had chosen to stand with them. Now there was no turning back. The night air grew heavy after the hunters passed, but the man knew it was not over. Their steps faded into the distance, yet the forest still carried the sound of pursuit. They were circling, tracking. They would return. The children pressed close to him, their glowing eyes wide and fearful. His dog stayed low beside them, ears pricked, body tense like a spring ready to snap. The man whispered, "We can't stay here." His voice trembled. He pointed deeper into the forest. The children nodded quickly as if they understood. Without another word, they began to move, their small feet silent on the soft ground. The man followed, heart pounding, every step loud in his own ears. His dog padded ahead, leading the way, sniffing for danger. For a while, only the sound of their breathing filled the night. Then came the first blast. A beam of searing light cut across the trees, striking the ground where they had been standing only seconds earlier. Dirt exploded upward. The children cried out, covering their ears as the sound echoed through the forest. His dog barked wildly, teeth bared, fur bristling. "Run," the man shouted, grabbing one child's arm and pulling them forward. They bolted, crashing through the trees, the hunters' voices thundering behind them. Harsh, guttural shouts rang out, followed by another flash of light that burned a tree trunk to ash. The smell of smoke and scorched wood filled the air. Branches whipped against his face, tearing his skin as he ran. His legs burned, lungs aching, but he did not stop. The children were quick, surprisingly quick, darting between roots and rocks as if they knew the forest better than he did. Still, their glowing bodies made them easy targets. Another shot blazed past, narrowly missing them. The ground shook as the hunters drew closer. His dog darted suddenly to the side, barking furiously at the pursuers. It leapt at one of the hunters, biting at its armored leg. The creature roared, swinging its weapon down, but the dog dodged, snarling, teeth flashing in the moonlight. The man's heart nearly broke. "Max!" he shouted. He wanted to go back, to drag his dog away from danger, but the children pulled him forward. Their hands clung to him with desperate strength. His dog wasn't abandoning them. It was buying them time. The forest opened into another clearing wider than the first. The ground here glowed faintly with lines of light, symbols carved into the dirt like patterns of stars. The children slowed, pointing frantically to the far side. Through the mist, the man saw it, a strange shimmer, a glowing oval hanging in the air. It pulsed softly like a doorway of light, a portal. The hunters burst into the clearing behind them, weapons raised. The man's blood turned to ice. He grabbed the children, pushing them toward the portal. "Go," he shouted. They stumbled forward, their glowing bodies blending with the misty light. But before they could reach it, a beam of energy struck the ground before them, exploding in a shower of sparks. The children screamed. His dog came rushing back, fur singed, panting hard but unbroken. It barked furiously at the hunters standing between them and the children once more. The man's chest swelled with pride and terror all at once. His loyal companion was fighting for them, for him, for strangers they had only just met. The hunters stepped into the clearing, their armor glowing faintly, faces hidden behind black helmets. They raised their weapons, speaking in their harsh language. The words were sharp, angry, commanding. The children trembled, clutching his arms. The man's mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan, only his will to protect them. He grabbed a thick branch from the ground, holding it like a club. His hands shook, but his jaw tightened. If they came closer, he would fight. He would not let them take the children. Then something unexpected happened. The taller child raised its hand. Its glowing eyes brightened and a pulse of light spread from its palm, washing over the clearing. The hunters stumbled, shielding their helmets as if the light burned their vision. The man blinked hard, his eyes watering, but he stood his ground. The smaller child pointed again toward the portal, shouting words in their strange language. The portal shimmered brighter, humming with energy. The man understood this was their way out. But the hunters were blocking the path. His dog growled and lunged forward, snapping at the nearest hunter's leg. The armored figure staggered, swinging its weapon down. In that split second, the man charged with the branch, striking the hunter across the arm. The blow was weak compared to their strength, but it was enough to knock the weapon aside. "Run!" he shouted again. The children darted forward, racing toward the portal. His dog followed, barking wildly, tail low. The hunters roared, firing another blast, but the light struck only empty ground as the children slipped into the shimmering doorway. The man hesitated, chest heaving, sweat stinging his eyes. He looked back once. The hunters were closing in, their weapons glowing. His dog stood at the portal's edge, barking furiously, refusing to leave without him. The children were on the other side, their glowing hands reaching out, urging him to follow. The man clenched his teeth. This was it. His choice. Stay in the world he knew, or leap into one he could never understand. With a final breath, he sprinted toward the light. The man sprinted forward, the ground shaking beneath him as blasts of light split the clearing. His lungs burned, his legs screamed with pain, but he did not stop. His dog barked furiously, leaping beside him, and the alien children stretched their glowing hands from the other side of the shimmering portal. Their wide eyes glowed with desperate hope, urging him to take the final step. Behind him, the hunters roared in anger. A blast scorched the ground where he had been seconds earlier, spraying dirt and fire. The heat seared his back as he leapt through the light. For a heartbeat, it felt as if the world had been ripped apart. His ears rang, his vision blurred, and every part of his body felt stretched thin. His dog yelped, and he feared for a terrible instant that they had been torn away from each other. Then it was over. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. The earth beneath him was no longer damp forest floor but smooth stone that glowed faintly with veins of light. The air smelled different too, cleaner, sharper, almost electric. He blinked rapidly, trying to adjust. When his vision cleared, his breath caught in his throat. They were no longer in his forest. Above them stretched a sky filled with stars, but not the familiar constellations he had known all his life. These stars were brighter, sharper, hung low as if he could reach up and touch them. Strange moons glowed in the distance, larger than anything he had ever seen. The land itself shimmered faintly with glowing dust that floated like fireflies. Towers of stone rose in the distance, carved with glowing symbols that pulsed like living veins. He staggered to his feet, still holding the branch like a weapon, his knuckles white. His dog pressed against his leg, ears still flat, growling low at the portal behind them. The shimmering oval still floated, its light unstable, flickering as if it might close at any moment. Through it, the hunters' shouts echoed, their armored figures looming, weapons glowing. The children shouted something in their strange language, pointing at the towers. They wanted to go. They wanted to run further, but the man's eyes stayed locked on the portal. He could see the hunters pushing through, their heavy steps shaking the ground even here. His blood froze. "The chase was not over. Move!" he shouted, grabbing the children's hands. They ran across the glowing stone, the dog racing ahead, barking. The portal behind them flickered violently, humming louder. One hunter forced half its armored body through, roaring with fury, a weapon raised. The man turned and swung the branch with all his strength, striking the edge of the weapon. Sparks exploded. His arms screamed with pain, but the hunter faltered for a moment, stuck halfway through the collapsing portal. The children cried out, pulling him forward again. The ground beneath them pulsed with light as they ran, strange patterns glowing under their feet as if the land itself was alive. Every step hummed with power. The towers grew closer, their carved symbols shining brighter, responding to the children's presence. Then, without warning, the dog stopped and growled, fur bristling. Ahead of them, figures emerged from the base of the towers, not hunters, not armored. These beings were tall, robed, their faces hidden by hoods. They carried staffs that glowed faintly with light, symbols swirling around their hands. Their presence was both terrifying and majestic, like guardians carved out of starlight. The man froze, caught between two dangers. Behind him, the hunters forced their way through the portal, roaring with fury. In front of him, these robed figures stood silent and still, their glowing eyes fixed on him and the children. His grip on the branch tightened. His dog snarled. His heart hammered. Then something unexpected happened. The children let go of his hands and ran forward, straight to the robed figures. They cried out in relief, their voices high and musical. One of the robed figures knelt down, spreading its arms wide. The children flung themselves into its embrace, glowing even brighter now. The man's breath caught. These were not enemies. These were protectors. The robed beings raised their staffs, and in a flash of light, the portal behind them collapsed with a thunderous crack, sealing the hunters away. The forest sounds faded, replaced by deep silence. The man dropped the branch, his arms trembling. His dog barked once, then fell silent, pressing close to his leg. His chest heaved with exhaustion and fear. The children turned back to him, their glowing eyes soft now, full of gratitude. One of them held the light orb again, offering it to him like a gift. The robed beings spoke, their voices deep, echoing like distant thunder. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. They were not angry. They were welcoming. They had seen what he had done, how he had chosen to protect the children when he could have run. For the first time that night, the man felt his fear loosen its grip. He was still lost, still far from home, but he was no longer alone. His dog pressed against him, warm and alive. The children smiled at him, safe at last. And the beings of light watched him not as an intruder but as something else entirely, an ally. The man realized then that he had not just saved them. They had brought him here for a reason. The man stood in the glowing land, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his face. His dog leaned against him, panting hard, its fur singed from fire and smoke. The children were safe now, clinging to the tall robed figures who had welcomed them with open arms. The hunters were gone, sealed behind the broken portal. For the first time since the search began, silence spread across the night. Yet the man's heart would not rest. His eyes kept drifting back to where the portal had once shimmered. That was the way home. His world, his street, his small house waiting empty. He had come into the forest searching for a lost dog. Now, standing under alien skies, he felt more lost than ever. One of the robed figures stepped forward, tall and graceful, its staff glowing faintly. The being lowered its hood, revealing a face that was not human but not monstrous either. Its skin shimmered like polished stone, its eyes deep pools of light. When it spoke, the words were strange, but the meaning pressed into his mind like a warm current. "You chose to protect them," the voice said. Not with sound, but with thought. The man staggered back, gripping his dog's collar. The figure continued. "Few would have done so. Fewer still would have faced the hunters. You are not one of us, yet you carry the same fire." The man's mouth went dry. He looked at the children, their glowing faces turned toward him with trust and hope. He looked at his dog, tail wagging weakly, eyes shining with loyalty. He whispered to himself, "I just wanted to bring him home." The smaller child stepped forward, holding the glowing orb of light. It floated gently in its small hands, pulsing softly like a living heart. The child offered it to him, eyes wide with meaning. He hesitated, but slowly reached out. When his fingers brushed the orb, warmth surged through him. Images filled his mind, stars, countless stars, spinning worlds, towers of light, alien cities filled with life. And among them humans, not as intruders but as equals, walking side by side with beings he had never dreamed existed. He gasped and nearly dropped the orb, but the child caught his hand and held it firmly. Their eyes met, and in that gaze he saw something clear. The children had not just found him by chance. His dog had not just wandered away. They had been guided, drawn together. The robed figure stepped closer. "You stand at a gate," the voice pressed into his thoughts. "One path leads home, back to silence, back to a world that will never know what walks beyond the stars. The other path leads here with them to dangers and wonders you cannot imagine. You must choose." The man's knees felt weak. His whole life flashed through his mind, long nights alone, empty chairs at his table, the quiet ache of grief. His dog had been the only heartbeat in his home. But here, in this strange place, he felt something different. A sense of belonging he had not known in years. These children had trusted him, and in saving them he had saved himself from that endless silence. Still, fear gripped him. What if he stayed? Could he survive here? Could his dog? Would he ever see his world again? His hands trembled. His dog pressed its head against his knee, steady and warm, as if saying, "Where you go, I go." The man closed his eyes, breathing deep. He thought of the hunters' cruel voices, the glowing forest, the portal that had nearly swallowed him. He thought of the children's laughter, their hands clutching his sleeve, their eyes full of trust. He thought of the orb of light showing him stars without end. When he opened his eyes, the decision was already made. He stepped forward. "I'll stay." His voice was soft but steady. The children's faces lit up with joy, their laughter returning, bright and musical. The dog barked, tail wagging furiously, bounding around as if it understood. The robed figures bowed their heads, their glowing staffs pulsing brighter. The orb in his hand sank into his chest like a spark, leaving him trembling but alive with new strength. Above them, the alien sky shimmered. The stars seemed to shift, brighter now, as if welcoming him. For the first time in years, the man did not feel like he was drifting alone. He had been found, chosen, and trusted. The robed figure spoke once more. "You are not only a protector now, you are one of us." The man looked at the children, at his dog, and then at the endless sky. He had gone searching for a lost companion. Instead, he had found a new world, a new family, and a place where his silence was gone forever. And as the night settled around them, he knew his life would never be the same again.